Frequency Radio.
Astronauts to the moon.
Ten, 9, ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Not to get off track here, but I feel like we're in the Truman Show, and we're in a snow globe, and they just shook it up.
Welcome to reality.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Jeranism Monday Night Raw, your current reigning, defending, and unarguable #1 show on Truth Frequency Radio on Monday nights from 6 to 8 Pacific and 9 to 11 Eastern. I'm one half of your hosting duo this evening. My name is Jeran. I hail from Central California, and I am the creator behind the eye-opening and awe-inspiring YouTube channel Jeranism. Make sure you subscribe if you aren't already. And the second half of the hosting duo, the co-host of the award-winning Flat Earth podcast, the creator of the DITRH YouTube channel, and the creator of the hated Flat Earth Sun and Moon and Zodiac Clock app. He hails from the East Coast. He is David CSF Weiss. David, que paso, mi hermano? What?
Fantastic opening. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I figured it stood for Central, Stationary, and Flat.
Yes,
is that correct?
That's exactly what CFF stands for.
Just making sure it's not something else. All right, good.
Nice.
That's the problem with acronyms, or I guess in this case it's considered initialism.
They're only for CFFs, according to somebody.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So anyway, I've heard people say that DITRH stands for something too. What is it? Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole, correct?
That is correct.
All right, because it could stand for other things like let's see, disturbingly inaccurate tales of roundness and heliocentrism. Did you ever think of that one? I think it's better. I would go with that one for you. It's true. Or I'm trying to think of other ones. Dude investigating truth, reality, and houseplants. And I couldn't think of something that started with an H. Can you?
No.
All right. Me neither. Or it could stand for David is truly a round earth shill. Yeah. Well, no, that doesn't really work.
Came close. You had
close.
me for a minute. You had me. You had me for a moment.
Only us in the inner circle know that to be true.
Yeah.
But not everyone else. So, how was your Easter? How was everything?
Easter was Easter. Just another Sunday for me.
Oh, okay.
You know,
well,
we didn't get to kill Jesus again, but it was just another Sunday.
Damn you Jews. I swear. Anyway, he is David, I'm Jeran, and this is Jeranism Monday Night Raw. So thank you guys for joining us. We always do appreciate it, and we're happy that you choose to spend your Monday nights with us. So yeah, I do hope everyone had a fantastic Easter. Hope you spent some time with family and friends. I drove to my mom's house for a nice little brunch. Always enjoy a little bit of time with mom for sure. But this particular holiday get-together, Dave, was a little different as it came with rules. Can you imagine?
You tell?
Yeah, not exactly from my family, as my mom is remarried, and this particular family that came is related to her husband, my stepdad. So very nice family. I like them very much, a husband and a wife, and they have 2 daughters. They're about 15 and 13, I'm guessing. Might be 16 and 14. I'm not really sure. They're both in high school. But anyway, somehow it was relayed to my mom, who relayed it back to me the day before Easter, that this husband and wife would appreciate it very much if I would not talk about conspiracies or flat earth. Can you believe that? Now,
what did you talk about?
Well, I guess the reason for this is because the 2 girls are kind of fond of me, or they like me. Hey, I'm a likable guy. What can I say? And like a year or so ago, I can't remember which holiday it was. It might have been last Easter, actually. I guess I was saying something about public education, and then on the way home, the girls were repeating or agreeing with my comments about indoctrination, and this flustered them to the point where in order for them to attend the Easter brunch at my mom's house, they needed to impose some restrictions on what I could and couldn't say, in fear, I guess, that my words
you might wake them
catch
up
these,
to some
they might
truth.
catch the ears of their young and impressionable girls. I was pretty pissed. And while I don't even discuss conspiracies much with my mom or her husband. And I had so many ideas running through my mind on the long drive to my mom's house. For example, I make a killer antipasto salad. I don't know if you know what that is, but everyone loves it. I'm always asked to bring it, and this Sunday was no different. My mom said, please bring your salad. So I considered making the pasta by placing all the ingredients in it, but forgetting to cook the pasta. So I was going to have like the cheese and the artichoke hearts and the salami and the tomatoes, but put in the dry pasta out of the box. And this way, when I got to my mom's and opened it up, everyone would be like, "What the hell is this?" And I'd be like, "Oh, shit. I'm such an idiot flat earther. I forgot to cook the pasta in my salad." So I had that idea. But no, I was perfectly behaved. I kept my little mouth shut. And I could see the girls sitting there across the table staring at me, awaiting my normal brilliant observations and comments. And I had zero. I did consider taking them outside and pointing out the pretty lines that planes make and showing them how they turn into clouds of goodness for all humanity. Thought about that
or
one.
telling them how to get 20% off their groceries every time they shop at CVS.
Right. I thought about I could give them tips on how we could save money at CVS by going to multiple CVS's and getting multiple flu shots for free and then collecting all the $5 coupons they hand out when you get a free flu shot. So I thought about that, didn't do that. Considered telling them the benefits of government-initiated or required public water fluoridation and how a reduction in cavities definitely trumps the lower IQ and thyroid problems caused by fluoride. And I was going to tell them how Prozac is made from 5 main ingredients: oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen. Why can't I remember the fourth one? Oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen, and carbon, which are everywhere. We breathe those in. We process those every day and night, and they're fine. They don't do any damage to us. But the 5th ingredient is fluoride. So I wanted to tell them that and how it's essential to our health, man, that the government makes medical decisions for all of us, like basically giving us all some Prozac through public water fluoridation and explaining explaining what a huge problem anti-vaxxers are and how they're, ruining the world. And I don't know, I could go into the obvious Trump collusion and obstruction. That would have been an open discussion topic, discussing
how
all the
old
truths.
are the girls?
They're both high school. I'm not sure. I think one's a junior, one's a freshman, something like that.
So, do you think this restriction on truth will inspire them to dig deeper because they're told don't touch, or do you think it actually helped keep them in their fogged stupor?
It probably depends, because if they knew that their parents said something like that, then I'm sure they would. That's going to cause them to go look into it, But if they were unaware that their parents asked that and then they just saw me sitting across the table being quiet, then maybe they thought, oh, maybe he doesn't believe that stuff anymore. So I was pretty pissed. I wanted to go into the importance of mainstream news and tell them how, clearly everything that we get out of the mainstream news is definitely fact, and how cool it is that Anderson Cooper works for the CIA or used to work for the CIA. I wanted to go into that and, why wars are needed and how those girls should sign up to fight in the military and how bombing innocent people in other countries needs their help to pull the trigger. I could have gone into many topics. 9/11, could have told them about how I think it's normal that the entire front of the Pentagon, the most highly protected building in the world, has like 26 cameras, was hit by a passenger jet, yet there's no footage of that jet hitting the Pentagon. Should have gone into that and just said how I think that makes sense. And to me, I wouldn't even – anyone who asks why there's no footage of that, to me, is just a conspiracy theorist. And anybody who asks questions about Building 7 obviously is a no-brain conspiracy theorist. So I could have gone into that stuff, but they didn't hear a peep from me. I sat there. I let the conversation go wherever it goes, to mainstream topics, and it was absolutely nothing. There was nothing talked about of any importance. So I don't know.
Sports, weather, murders.
Yep. No murders were discussed, but no, just a bunch of nonsense. And so it was very fun to have my free speech basically squashed at Easter brunch.
So YouTube is censoring you and your mother is censoring you.
Right. Yeah, who's next? Really, it's a question. So she felt bad about saying it. She did write in a little text message. It was the day before. I actually considered saying I'm not going. But it was Saturday that I got that text, and I'm like, we're already planning on going. We already bought the ingredients for the antipasto salad. Let's just go. So we went. But, I don't know. I was pretty upset because, like you said, it's my free speech. So it kind of, I can't picture, I can't picture anything else being that kind of blatant. And really, what are these guys trying to do? Hide their daughters from flat earth talk? Is that the best way? I just, sheltering your children and putting them inside and just don't let them hear anything else. That's why I always talk to people about the importance of teaching critical thinking. If what I'm saying is wrong and what I'm saying is harmful, then as parents, you should have a discussion on the drive home he believes the earth is flat, but here's all the ways that we know that it's not. Or at least get them to think on their own. You don't just call my mom and say, Jeran can't speak about those things unless you have no counter. That's the only thing I can think of. That when they're driving home, they've got nothing to say to these girls, and they have a problem with that. They're flustered by it. They obviously didn't like whatever I said a year ago, and my mom didn't even truly remember or didn't want to tell me, and I didn't remember saying anything wrong. I don't know what would be considered wrong, but I certainly don't go to family gatherings and just say, like, the earth is flat and you guys are a bunch of globe earth, indoctrinated fools. Nothing like that. And so to me, I don't know, it's just free speech being squashed so that these girls can be raised in the beliefs that CNBC tells them. I don't know. It's pretty disgusting.
That is a horrible story.
It is a horrible story. It really pissed me off. It really pisses me off. So anyway, I hope everybody did have a fantastic Easter. I really do. But I wasn't too happy about that. We did have no Globebusters yesterday, so if people were looking for Globebusters, we did announce the week prior that we were taking Easter off. I had plans, obviously, to go have my free speech squelched at Mom's house, so I couldn't be on Globebusters.
Perfect.
What a trade, right?
Yeah.
But we will be back next Sunday, the 28th of March, so please tune back in. That's on the Globebusters channel. Make sure you subscribe if you are not. David, I wanted to talk a little bit about Owen Benjamin, your best friend, and if it wasn't for Paige, I'd say maybe your future boyfriend. But
no, not true at all.
Just check.
Not true at all.
All right. So talk to us about Owen.
Yeah. So Owen. I'm trying not to say anything bad, but Owen saw through the bullshit of a well-known flat earther. Let's just call them Savanier. What's that?
Why are we not saying anything bad? We're not
I really don't like saying. I like ignoring the crappy things out there. That way you don't bring more of them into your life.
Oh, did you learn that from me, or did I learn it from you? I might have learned it from you.
Maybe. So Owen and I have been going back and forth. We finally connected. We've been texting each other a bunch, and he says he's having me on this week. Not sure when. It'll come up when it comes up, and we're going to talk about flat Earth. Am I the best person to talk flat Earth with him? It depends on what we're talking about. I mean, I think I can do a good job on a lot of it. I think I speak his language, and there's so much flack out there. You shouldn't talk to Owen Benjamin. He's a shill. Well, he's not a shill, and he's also not. I'm accused of him being my idol. He's not an idol. I like what he has to say. He says good stuff. I like what you have to say sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yeah, well, most of the time, actually.
You like my thumbnails. Let's be honest.
You have great thumbnails. We got to talk about your thumbnail on narwhals, on narholes or whatever it is.
Get them right.
Narholes. And so we're supposedly going to be out doing it this week, but I'm sure in the meantime the trolls are really lining up on his channels and are going to try to reconvince him to talk to Savanier first. And I don't really care who he talks to as long as the person that he talks to stays on topic,
right?
And really helps him explore some areas that he hasn't looked yet. Owen's a smart guy. He knows there's a problem with the globe without any of us helping him. He doesn't need our help.
Right.
We're just looking for a good, fun conversation, and that's how I look at this whole thing.
That's why I think that you are the best person for it, because I think that he's very kind of playful. He just wants to have a fun conversation, and I'm not sure there's a better person for that. I would say that Dubé is good. He does a great job.
He's just not fun.
No, and he's going to get into all the nonsense that he got into before.
The shills and Menatron and agents, and there's still threads on IFERS. Somebody sent a thread of me. I couldn't even. I didn't even look at it. It's just like what's all this about you on IFERS? I'm just like I'm not interested.
Oh, if you go to IFERS, it says that I am Michael Moriarty and that I stole $80,000 from. I mean, this is the kind of research that they do, and this is the kind of thing that Dubé promotes and repeats. And so, when you get into that, if that's the kind of, go to my channel and try and find one time that I've accused another flat earther or somebody else of being anything. and saying, oh, this person stole this money and this. I don't do things like that because I would have to have evidence to make those claims. It can't just be some guy emails me and says, hey, Dubé is actually this guy who stole $80,000, and then I go make a video and say that. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's not how I make videos. It's not how I go about my business. But it is his way of doing it.
You know what's going to be really fun is I'm going to get on his show. We're going to talk about flat Earth for like 30 seconds. We're going to get sidetracked onto other interesting topics, and we're never going to come back. We're just going to talk about other stuff.
That's okay. There's so many things to talk about out there, and I think flat Earth is, of prime importance. I've talked about that many times. I think that people need to recognize that if, you've said it before, if you don't know where you're from and you don't know where you're at, then you don't know where you're going. And I think that's ultimately their goal, is to keep people confused. And Dubé is he's gonna start laying it out nice and neat, and then all of a sudden he's gonna jump over into the calling everybody shills, and maybe he'll dress up as a woman and do a couple videos about it. I don't know what he's gonna do. So you just have to that's why
I made a comment on his last video where basically he was whining like a CSF, and he I basically said, I pointed out to him that at the beginning, he woke up most of us up. Lots of us early flat earthers saw his stuff first, and he was great. But then he went off the rails, and just with all this accusation stuff, and he was worried about us poisoning the well. That was his thing. Mark Sargent's poisoning the well by saying there's a dome, and this and that, and you know what? He had some, it's like, at the beginning, I didn't agree with some people, so we had conversations. I actually had conversations with Mark, Patricia, with you, and we all like, hey, you know what? That makes sense. You know what? I'm not going to say ice wall anymore. I'm going to say ice shoreline because it's more descriptive, and we all help each other. Well, he's never helped anybody. He's just caused, infighting, and he has his Savanier fans who are just, they just don't care, and it's just so gross. And I like the fact that Owen saw through that without ever even talking to the guy. I said to Owen, like, on paper, if you look at the facts, it sure looks like you treated Eric slightly unfair, but in reality, if you look at the whole picture of what's going on, you saw right through it, and you saw what he really is like, and decided not to talk to him, and I respect that.
Let me tell you what I have a problem with, and maybe I'm the only one that has. Okay, so there's some channels on YouTube out there where you've probably heard them before, where you click on a video, you think it's going to be a video about something, and it is, but the problem is that the person is afraid to talk. So either they put text on the screen or they get a computer voice.
God, I hate it when someone just
puts
music and text and no voice. It's the worst. And they make them really short, too.
Yeah, I can't stand it. No, here's the thing. It's okay if that's the way you make videos. That's fine.
Those are all my videos.
Okay, but let's talk about Dubé. So he made a video the other day, I guess, all about Owen Benjamin. You saw that video?
Whining, crying.
Yes. But he wasn't talking. He typed out in the amount of time that it would take me to type out a bunch of things that I was going to say. I can just say those things in the video. So I have a problem. Where is he? Why can't he talk in a video? Why do we need to look at text on the screen about him saying Owen did this to me and Owen did that to me? And it's like, just talk. You're right there at your computer.
He wanted to lay it out. You did this and I did that and you did this and I did that. It's not about that. It's literally about just being a good person and having a real conversation and being respectful. That's what I wanted to say is in my spare time, I can do flat Earth all the time. I can do 100% flat Earth. You know why? Because I see the importance of it. I find it fascinating. It's I've been tricked my entire life, and now I see through it, and I can never get bored with it. However, Owen has been talking about some really good stuff. He really brings some things to light. He puts words, he puts things together that that I haven't been able to say in words so well.
Right.
And he's just so good, and he's funny. Listen, I've got when you're funny all the time, you're not funny all the time. Sometimes it doesn't go well, and right. It's like, hey, that's the risk of being a comedian. He's honed his art, and I really appreciate it. Nathan Oakley appreciates his humor. It's good. So that all together, I think he's a great guy to talk to, and on top of that, he's right. He's got a new audience, and flat earthers are freaking out. Oh, a new audience! Well, absolutely. Guess what? It's a new audience, and those people, when presented this information properly, will become interested in it, just like we were.
Right. That's why I think that flat earthers need to really make sure that they leave him alone a little bit. You know, if he gets into that subject and you want to jump in the chat and encourage him or whatever, that's fine. But sometimes I watch his thing, and on the right, I'll just see a bunch of flat earthers in there. Talk flat earth. Why aren't you talking about flat earth? And that bothers me.
People are saying that he's a shill because he won't talk about flat earth. No, he just hasn't gotten to it. You know how Eddie...
we all went through that. I mean,
Eddie Bravo taught you that sometimes you just have to not respond because there's too many people.
That was B.O.B. But anyway.
B.O.B. Yeah, B.O.B. And when you get so many messages, you just can't respond to all of them. Well, he has got a lot going on. He's doing a lot of things, and
right.
he has his I don't want to call it an agenda, but he has some streams of thought that he's trying to get out there, and he'll get to flat earth. I said, hey, anytime if it's a month, I don't care. Just give me a little heads up. And he says it'll definitely be this week. So
good.
Yeah, it'll be when it happens. So
anybody who's seeking truth will eventually get to this subject, in my opinion. There's just no way that you can't. And that's why I say leave him alone, because if people would have come and started yelling at me right when I first started talking about certain subjects to, why aren't you talking about this? And I got it all the time. And it just made me not want to talk about those things. I had a lot of people coming to me and say, you never talk about the North Pole. You always talk about the South Pole. You always talk, but you never mention the North Pole. Well, it's just because I haven't done the amount of research I need to do to be able to present a good video about the North Pole. So I haven't got to it. But the more people that would say that to me, it wasn't like it made me say to myself, oh, I need to really quick get a video out about the North Pole. It made me go like, I'm not going to do a video just because these people are telling me to. So I kind of think of it the same way. I don't think you want to pressure him too much into it. You want him to find it naturally, which he clearly has. He clearly knows the moon landings didn't happen.
He knows the moon landings didn't happen. He knows there's a major problem with the ball. And if you've listened to all of his streams, all the times he's brought it up, you could see where he's going. He doesn't need our help. The only reason he needs our help is just to speed up the process a little bit and have some fun along the way.
Right.
But he's figuring it out. He's figuring it out himself.
Absolutely.
And he's probably watching. He has to have seen your videos, and now he's got to see mine, and I'm sure he's seen a bunch of others. So he's no dummy.
No,
that's it.
Yeah. So anyway, I think it'll come. It's just a matter of time, and I'm really happy. So hopefully that happens this week. So everybody keep your ears peeled for possible Owen and Dearth little conversation, and that'd be fun. I think it'd be humorous as well.
It should be fun. I did invite him to come on our show tonight.
Is he here?
No, he went live the second we went live.
Oh, okay. Our numbers are probably
bastard.
I used to be able to check our live stats on here. Can I do it anymore? Let me see if I click.
Don't do it. He's got 3,500 people watching.
Oh, it says live stats are currently disabled for maintenance. So maybe that means I've got 10,000 listeners. No, we usually average about between 3,500 and 4,500.
All right, that's right.
Pretty good.
I get to listen to him at double speed later, so that'll be good.
Is that possible?
Oh, I do. I'm good at it.
That's good. Yeah, usually I can't. Most people I can't get past 1.25%, or else.
I've been listening to some people at 2.4 lately.
How can you do that on YouTube?
No. On podcasts. On podcasts.
Oh, podcasts. Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say. All right. Well, hopefully you didn't listen to my video. Oh, go ahead.
No. Go ahead. I want to talk. We can talk about the narwhals now or after the break.
Sure, whatever you want. Well, I guess we'll talk about narwhals now if you want. I was going to make sure you didn't listen to me on 2 times. I don't think you probably could have gotten an understanding of what I was trying to say at 2 times speed.
No. Let's we only have 2 minutes left, so let's talk about narwhals at the end because I have an observation and I want you to confirm it.
All right. You mean the at the end? You mean the next segment?
No. Yeah, in the next segment. That's what I meant.
All right. I don't know what you're talking about.
We have like 3 minutes until the segment's over.
We have 3.5. One of the videos I do want to do coming up because I listened to Nathan Oakley's Flat Earth debates and it came up in that. And I'm like, man, why? I haven't done a video on that yet. The Neil deGrasse tweet that said that a field goal was made because of the Coriolis effect or because the Earth rotated is ridiculous.
That's a couple years old, right?
It is, but the fact people don't understand that is the crux of our argument. That if you kick a field goal and he says basically that the Earth rotates under, if that's what happens, then all plane flights that fly west would obviously take a much shorter time because the Earth is coming towards you. He's actually saying that from the time the kicker kicks a field goal and it starts heading off in a straight direction, that the Earth rotates underneath it, moving the field goal posts into a place where, in this case, it hit the post and went in. And he's saying if it didn't rotate, it would have just hit the post and not gone in. But it's ridiculous.
People have actually used that. At least one person has brought that up when Coriolis is brought up in a debate. They're like, yeah, in the Super Bowl, and they just bring it up as a fact because Neil said it.
Right, and the problem with that is that's the flat earthers argument. That's why I think a video needs to be made. Is people get stuck in this whole idea of Coriolis force, and I think Nathan Oakley did a good job of pointing out to everyone that there is a Coriolis force. So a lot of people think, oh, it's fake, there's no such thing. No, there is such thing as a Coriolis force if you get on a merry-go-round and it starts spinning and you throw a ball to someone across from you, that the ball will deviate because of the fact that the merry-go-round is rotating underneath you. So that the Coriolis force is real, but the problem is it doesn't exist on Earth because the atmosphere moves around with the Earth. So, it's the same thing. If the atmosphere moved around with the merry-go-round and you threw a ball in it, then there wouldn't be a Coriolis force. You have to have two separate frames of reference.
Do you think if you had a merry-go-round that was enclosed in a dome and it was spinning and the air was spinning with you,
that's ridiculous talk, dude.
No, I'm just saying no, because the whole thing is enclosed.
All right, we'll talk about it when we get back. Right. No, we got to talk about that. I want to hear
it. Is ridiculous.
Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Jeranism Monday Night Raw. We'll be right back. back to this Coriolis thing because I got to hear this, Dave. So we have a merry-go-round. It's enclosed and spinning.
So it's a regular size merry-go-round.
Okay.
And you have some, let's say, some cardboard walls that are 6 feet high to make sure that the air is spinning around with it, and it's enclosed. We could make something like that where the air would go around with it because it has no, it wouldn't spin with it.
No. Well, okay. So it's such a joke. So to talk about this, we'd have to imagine a spinning merry-go-round covered with a dome, of course, because otherwise the atmosphere would just fly off into the vacuum. So you got your merry-go-round.
I'm not talking about a vacuum. I'm just talking about if you can get it spinning with the air, would there be a Coriolis force if you threw the ball?
No, there wouldn't.
How do you know?
I don't know. If you're talking about the air is moving perfectly with that, it's impossible.
All right, I want to change the topic. You ready?
I'm ready for the change of
All
topic.
Right. So you were involved with the laser experiment at the lake, the one that FE Core did.
Balaton.
Lake Balaton, right? You were remote, but you were involved, right?
Yes, I did the live stream, I think.
Yeah. So the problem they were having was aiming the laser because at that distance of 15 miles or whatever it was, the tiniest movement of the laser moves it hundreds of yards.
Absolutely.
At the far end. And so Zach came up with a digital, positioning and moves it, microns.
Right. It's called the salad.
Yeah. So now let's imagine that we did that and the Earth is spinning. Doesn't matter if the Earth is spinning or not. You're in a reference frame that is stationary with the other reference frame. So whether the Earth was spinning or not wouldn't be an issue. Agreed?
Agreed.
Okay. So when they photographed this black hole, they used different observatories all around the Earth to make an observatory, like a giant observatory. That's the excuse that they use, right?
Yes.
Okay. How can they focus on something so far away with all the different motions of the Earth? I mean, the Earth is spinning, just spinning, let alone orbiting and whirling and rocketing. How can they focus on anything, anywhere, any distance?
Well, they have the always get out of jail free card of the fact that the stars are so far away.
But the farther away they are, the more, like when you're looking at something 50 yards away and you move it a millimeter, the far side, the target is going to move by 100 feet.
I see what you're saying. Okay,
so
I got it.
The farther away it is, a billionth of a millimeter would move it a light year.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. No, and I had the same problem when we did our first test at the canal, and that's something. Even 4 miles, we were only shooting that laser 4 miles, and if I tried to move it with my hand, just to touch it a little bit with your forefinger or something, then they would tell me over there, oh, you had it, but now it's 10 feet off. Be like, damn it! So then I'd have to keep knocking it back, and every time you move it just a little, it flies off, 10 feet at the other end.
That alone, if you think about it, proves that any deep space observations on telescopes are complete and total bullshit.
Well, certainly the gathering together of several telescopes to make one Earth-sized telescope is
even one. You can't point something. You can't get a laser. Get on a merry-go-round and point a laser at something 2 miles away and see if you can keep it on there.
Oh God, never.
It's impossible.
It's impossible. Yeah. So hopefully,
and now get the merry-go-round to start tumbling down the road while it's flying, straight up into the air at 100 miles an hour. It makes no sense. None of it makes any sense.
None of it makes sense. So yeah, hopefully people have seen my video. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, check it out. It's called Narholes. Image coming soon. So check that one out. I kind of tried to do a little joke of a video a little bit that I just thought it was hilarious, listening to Nathan Oakley, and this is back, a year ago or so, or maybe 6 months ago, when he's talking to people and he keeps bringing up this idea of Narnia, which he just keeps saying, oh, well, the place that you're saying these things exist is the same as Narnia. It's the same as me. And the more I kept hearing, I'm like, you know what? That is such a great analogy, because really then I would go to like the Wikipedia for black holes. And if you just start reading them and you just change black hole to narhole and universe to Narniaverse, that all of a sudden it's glaringly ridiculous. And for some reason, when you put the words back, black hole, universe, field of space-time, relativity, then all of a sudden it kind of seems to make sense. But I'm thinking in my head, no, the reason that it makes sense when we're talking about it in those terms is because we were all indoctrinated to that belief. at such a young age, it becomes part of your belief system. But if you remove that, you really start to realize that the universe that they've taught us is no different than Narnia. Just like Narnia, you can't go there, Dave. You can't go there. Just like you cannot go out into the universe. You cannot see a black hole with your telescope, Dave. Only these highly skilled professional, astrophysicists can see it with their multiple telescopes. So it's the same thing as us saying, well, there exists a narwhal inside Narnia, but nobody can see it because it's too far. We have to get a bunch of So it's just stories. And then when you talk about the fabric of space-time, and according to relativity, it states, but when you really look into black holes, it's all such garbage. It just makes no sense. The fact that anybody would believe in that story just tells me how indoctrinated we all are. And I'm certainly not saying bad things about other people who believe in that, because you and I, Dave, believed in it as well. We believed 5 years ago in black holes. We thought that there's black holes in the sky, and then the more you read about them, the more you learn about them, the more you research it, you realize they're talking about a mathematic singularity, which doesn't even exist in reality. Think about what that is. A singularity? What do you mean a singularity? Oh, it's just a tiny little point, and they're saying that the stars collapse into this tiny point, and they have infinite density. Anytime you hear the word infinite or infinity, please run the other way. That is not reality. There is no infinite anything. We could count all the grains of sand on the earth. We could count all the blades of grass. There is no infinity. But yet in the mathematics and in the universe, they say that the space that we exist in is infinite. And not only is it infinite, but it's expanding. That's what things are classic.
I always had a problem with going into a black hole where it brings you to another dimension. I'm like, wait a minute, isn't it kind of dense in there? And but no, I guess that it could be. And I never was able to wrap my mind around it. And now it's like,
now you wonder
what
now
was
you
I
realize
ever
why.
thinking?
No, and they get to use terms like the spaghettification, and I didn't really mention this in the video, and I should have. But the spaghettification, which is an actual word that they use in astrophysics that describes what would happen when you went inside of a black hole, is hilarious because it's Richard Dawkins, who believes in the universe and everything and believes in evolution and teaches that strongly, that talks about the spaghetti monster. He says that there's some spaghetti monster in space and makes fun of it because he's kind of trying to describe God or a creator and saying how ridiculous this spaghetti monster in space is. But then they believe in something called spaghettification that happens when you get to the singularity at the outside of the event horizon.
Is that when you drag your fork over a black hole, it spaghettifies?
Right, the fork will be bent, because the gravity that's at the lower end of the fork would be much stronger than at the top end of the fork, and therefore it would be spaghettified. These are the kind of concepts, and we can have the meatballer caller call in and get upset at me saying that again, but it's the truth. These are nothing but concepts, and people have been led astray in the worst possible way because now they can no longer differentiate between reality and what they're being told is reality. And that's a tough one, and they've got the backing of all these scientists, all these I guess you can call them witnesses in the courtroom, all these people that come forward and say, oh no, black holes are real for this reason and that reason. And I had to include again that clip of Neil deGrasse saying that when it comes to the universe, he says, and definitely, or he says, when it comes to science and certainly in astrophysics, that you no longer use your senses to decide what makes sense. So that quote alone is like enough to make somebody say, well, hold on a second, time out. You're saying that the area that we can't go to, the area that you think you know about because you read it in a textbook that was, written down and taught to you by your astrophysics professor, that you're saying that because of what's in this textbook, even though it doesn't match anything and it's completely out of everything normal, it's completely counterintuitive, that people just need to accept it because you say so. That you're just saying the universe is the way it is. And this is where I hope to make a point in my video. I tried to, contrast that by saying, well, the thing is about the Narnia-verse is that you don't use your senses to decide whether it's real or not. It is real because it is. And if people argue that, so, well, that's totally different. No, it's not different. It's the same thing. It's a place you can't go to. Someone's telling you it exists. Somebody's telling you the mathematics involved, and it doesn't even make sense. What is a black hole? If it's a dense little point, then it's not a hole. What exactly is it? And if it's a hole in what? You can't just have a hole. Think about what they say space is.
Space-time, man.
Yeah, it's space-time. What is space-time?
It's like a hole in the boat. Everything, you can sink if you get a black hole.
No, a boat is physical, Dave. A boat I can go touch. A boat is tangible. That should be discussed in physics. So we got that. The hole in space-time is a hole in the vacuum, which is nothing. So what's a hole? There's a hole in nothing, and yet this is what the greatest minds in the world believe in, and they teach it and they proclaim it. And flat earthers are sure stupid. They'll point that out at every news article and every news story possible and every video by Simon Dan, but they don't think that they don't even think those things should be questioned. The fact that a neutron star is said to weigh 22 billion pounds, and you're like, well, oh no, I'm sorry, a teaspoon. These are the kind of things that are just hilarious to me. A teaspoon of neutron star. So if you could go out into space and you get close to a neutron star and you grab a teaspoon of it with your little spoon out of your little drawer, that weighs 22 billion pounds. The fact that is considered fact or truth or real or reality by
I used to think that was the coolest thing ever. I'm like, that is awesome.
So cool.
I totally believed it.
That a spoonful of Cheerios could at some place in the universe weigh 22 billion pounds. Oh man, it's sickening. And we're talking about a black hole that they say exists 330 quintillion miles. And I do apologize. At some point in that video, I made a mistake and said quadrillion. And I meant quintillion because it's quintillion miles.
Quadrillion, quintillion, what's the difference?
It just it's beyond sanity. And there's no other way for me to describe that. And if people want to believe it, have at it. But it's the same as somebody's coming along saying that they believe in Narnia. And all of a sudden saying, oh, well, there's these holes in Narnia that you can't see with your telescopes. But if we get a bunch of telescopes together and we all peer through that wardrobe at the same time, then we can get an image of one. And then we can pass it off to the world. And again, I mean, this is just the same old thing that science keeps doing, helping promote themselves. That's why I say it's a battle of convincing. They're trying to convince you that they know everything. Think about what they say they know, Dave. They think they know, and I mentioned this in the video, what happened 1/100th, blah, 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 of a second after the Big Bang. So these men that are standing on this earth, now even think in their world, that there's this little tiny sphere Earth that is a speck of dust in the grand universe of everything. And they want us to think that on this little speck of dust that is 0.00000% of the solar system, let alone the rest of the universe, that there are smart enough men standing on this sphere that have figured out how to rewind time to the beginning of time, and they know exactly what took place 1/1000th of a second after the world was created 14.5 billion years ago. The fact that anybody doesn't laugh in their face is a sad state of affairs for humanity. The fact that
you just don't know science, dude.
Absolutely.
Hey, when I said
I don't know
the difference between a quadrillion and a quintillion, what's the difference? There's a huge difference. Just a reminder for everybody, 1 quintillion seconds, 31 billion years.
That's ridiculous.
1 quintillion seconds is 31 billion years.
It's so sad. Think about what we know about history. Nothing. I mean, it really is the story that the winners tell. We all know that. So really, these men that stand upon this sphere floating in outer space, they don't know what happened 100 years ago, 200 years ago. Yet they've convinced the world that they know what happened 14.5 billion years ago. You got to be kidding me. I mean, it's sad. And, my life's work is going to, people always ask me, I always get comments and think, well, why do you get stuck on flat earth? Why don't you ever do other videos? Which I do. I do other videos. I do talk about other topics. But this is the most glaring one to me that people need to recognize, step away from, and then reassess. That's all I expect. And if they come to the conclusion, which many people have, that, nope, the earth is a sphere, I'm going to believe these men, then that's fine. You just believe in Narnia and you believe in the priests who tell you they know all about it. And that's fine for you. That's great for you. What I don't want to do is I don't want to die. I think it was Richard Feynman who said, I'd rather have questions I'd rather have questions about things rather than have answers that are incorrect. And I'm the same way. I don't want to go through life thinking I know all the answers, thinking I know where I live, and die just, hey, there we go. I thought I knew everything. I'd rather have questions about the world. I'd rather go to my deathbed questioning everything than to ever believe something because Neil deGrasse Tyson told me that he knows about it because he read it in a book. It's like, and maybe if somebody's been there, Dave, you've been to Vieques, right? So
yep.
If you tell me about the things on that island and you tell me how it is and the weather and what to expect, I'm probably going to believe you because you've been there. I'm going to say, okay, well, David wasn't wrong when he told me about what to expect in in New Jersey or whatever. So I'm going to start to accept what you're saying. But when you're talking about these priests, Brian Cox, people like Neil deGrasse, it's completely and totally different because they've never been there. They know nothing. They're looking through a telescope or an imagination tube, as I called it. So to me, it's just, I would never feel comfortable unless, now, if somebody like that is super smart and they want to say, well, Jeran, here's the way it all works and you can come see all these things and okay, great, I'll check it out. But when I start looking into those things, it isn't that. It isn't come to this observatory and we'll show you a black hole. It's, oh no, only these scientists have done it. And how did they do it? Well, they needed these multi-billion-dollar, or I won't say billion, $1 million telescopes. And then you're like, well, who paid for those? Oh, taxpayers paid for those. You're like, holy shit. So if these people found nothing, they linked together all these telescopes that cost multi-million dollars, and they all peer into the blackness of the sky and they say, we didn't find anything. Do you think that any government is going to ever give them another grant or another payment so that they can build these telescopes? No. So what do they have to do? They have to keep moving. It's kind of like the carrot hanging on the stick in front of the dog or the rabbit. You have to get them to always think you're getting somewhere. So now we have the image of the black hole. It's like, what good does that do? What does that do? What could that possibly mean to humanity? You found a picture of something that's 330 quintillion miles away. Who the fuck cares? Who cares? And yet the whole world follows. It's on all the news stations. It's anywhere you search it on the internet. It's all over the place as if it did something. So to any globe believer, to anybody who believes in the whole helio-nonsensical system, you really need to ask yourself some questions about why does it matter? Why would this be news? It's no different than if somebody said, "Oh, we found a black hole."
You have to know what's out there, so when we start exploring the other planets, we know what we're running into. If we didn't know about black holes and we were on our way to Mars and we hit one, that would be tragic.
I don't think there's black holes in the solar system. I don't even think they believe that. But they're saying that they're way out there, and then they give you the number of them and the miles, and it's always something. Why is there always 100 billion of something? Oh, there's 100 billion galaxies and there's 100 billion this and there's 100 million stars. It's like, what the hell are they talking about? And they tell you, they actually convinced people that there is over 100, or is it 10? One, or I don't know. 10.
How do you count 100 billion? Because if you can count if you count a star every second and never stop, it'll take you 31 years to get to 1 billion.
Yeah,
that's if you count one every second without break. No sleeping, no eating, no bathroom breaks. One star a second, you're going to get to 1 billion in 31 years.
Well, they say they take a little picture of a little section and then multiply that by how many sections it would take. But it's just ridiculous. They say there's over 100 sextillion other suns. Just think about that. The sun that we have that's outside your door right now, or maybe it's set for you. But to think that there is 100 sextillion of those, it's beyond putting you into a speck of dust. It is truly the most insane belief that there ever was. And this is what these guys profess. And why do they profess it? Because the alternative calls into question their intelligence. And really, they're not smart enough to know the age of the Earth. They're not smart enough to know. I mean, they've got these strata layers that they calculate, and there's trees that grow through the entire layer. And they still say, oh, these layers are different ages of the Earth. You're like, how did the tree grow through millions and millions of years? It's just such nonsense. And people believe it. It's the same thing with evolution. Man, I mean, people just are afraid, I guess, to ask the questions, and it's by design. They have to come across as being the most intelligent people on the earth so that you don't question the nonsense that they tell you. If for 1 second you found out that they're not right about everything, then you would start to question, like, wait a second, how do these guys know the age of the earth? They don't want you doing that. They want you to know that it's been tested, it's done.
They want us to think, everything was just a random mutation and things changed. And I was watching a nature show the other day, and I saw the scene where they show this orchid flower that lures this one type of bee in there, and then the bee slips and falls into the sticky fluid, and then it's like almost going to drown, but there's like one way to get out. And when he goes out there, the plant will put a dab of glue on the bee's back and slap 2 packs of pollen on his back, like literally like a backpack, and glue it to the bee's back. Okay. And then that bee will fly around and go into another flower where it'll sense that those are on it. And when it's climbing out again, it'll scrape them off and it'll pollinate the flower. And that happened by just random mutations. I mean, it's unreal, all of this stuff. And I knew about that flower and that bee when I still believed in evolution.
Right.
And that this was all, I mean, we weren't thinking back then. And now we're accused of, oh, you just want to feel special. You want to feel like you know more than everybody else.
Yeah,
and,
that's really us. I'm the one telling people I know what happened 14.5 billion years ago. Like, what are you talking about?
It's so funny. They accuse us of everything that they do. You know,
Absolutely.
like Savanya. You guys are poisoning the well. Well, I dare you to search Savanya by his real name and then click images and see what comes up.
Yeah, I've seen them before, and one of them will be an impression of me. By the way, that was a terrible impression. But oh boy. So Narholes, check out that video, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. It took me a little time to make, but I thought it was good. Anyway, what else do we have going this week, Dave? I'm not going to tell people the day of the week, but it is this week that I will be traveling a short distance, not too far, but trying to see a solar ISS pass. So.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, so people will get to check that out. Hopefully, as
there
long
you
as
go.
Clouds.
Proving the globe and NASA again.
Proving the globe and NASA. No, so I'm interested in seeing that. I do think that it would tell me a lot. So if I see that, I will come out with a video and explain what I think it is. And I'm not telling anybody, so it kind of gets away from the idea of they're faking it, because I have looked at that transit finder, and there's people all along California, and if you could go out in the ocean and down south through Mexico, they can all see what I'm going to see. And from different positions and at different times. And so if we see it, it might be an interesting topic.
Let's figure it out. That's the goal, is to figure it out, because if you think about it, they know where the sun is. They know where the moon is. They can calculate something to fake it. It can be faked.
It probably can. But,
it definitely can. So, but how are they doing it? Let's figure it out. It's a great puzzle.
I think
That's what's interesting about this whole thing. And I'm stealing a quote from Owen Benjamin, that it's a really interesting puzzle. And that's fascinating. Hey, let me talk about the app. Came up with a couple new improvements thanks to some suggestions and just some ideas. I am adding notifications. So so you'll get a notification whenever the video changes, or like say something, some live events going. I can do a push notification to the app, which is nice, and you can ignore those notifications if you want. The other thing I am adding, if I can remember what the heck it was, is the weather just shows you your high and low temperature. So when you get up in the morning, first thing you do is you check your app. You see the high and low temperature. That pretty much gives you enough information to go get dressed for the day. But if you want more detailed information, you tap the weather, and it brings you to your local detailed forecast. What do you think about that?
Very cool. I think it's awesome. I think that the notifications are awesome, and I know a ton of people will probably complain and say, I didn't want notifications, and I guess people don't understand. Just so people know, on your iPhone, you can actually turn off notifications for any app. It's very simple. You just go to your little settings and go to notifications, and there'll be one that says Flat Earth Sun and Moon Clock, and you turn it off. And then you never have to deal with notifications. And if you like them, I have notifications turned on in several apps. And
I could put a little short description about what today's video is about, and that way you know whether you want to click it or not.
Great. So if I want to be more on the app, I just need to continue busting out some great thumbnails.
And the other thing, which I really am happy that that have the app for, is the YouTube censorship, because for a new person to find quality content on YouTube, it's getting tougher and tougher. But the app has, a personally selected by DITRH himself video each day, and then it has the archive playlist. So if you want to, you're having a productive conversation with somebody who's truly interested, and they say, where can I learn more? That's one fun place to send them. Say, hey, check your weather every morning on this app while you're getting dressed. Click the video of the day, and I say, you do that for 2 weeks, and you're a flat earther.
I would agree. No, I think it's a great idea. So. Yes, check out the app. Make sure you get that. And again, you can email David too if you want to get an Android one for free. If you have reason that you can't pay for it, give him an email over at info@theflatearthpodcast. No, is that right?
info@theflatearthpodcast.com.
Oh, good. I got it right.
Yeah. But the name of the app, just in case there's two of you out there that don't know, it's the Flat Earth Podcast. No, that's not the name of the app. It's the Flat Earth Sun Moon, and Zodiac Clock app. It's also listed under the Flat Earth Sun and Moon Clock. It's the one that's $2.99, and there's a fake out there that's really crappy. So if you download that one for free, don't send me any emails about why it sucks.
It's not his app. There you go.
Not my app.
Don't go anywhere. We got your calls and more conversation when we get back to the break.
You are now tuned into the truth frequency.
We are TFR. TFR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
On the weekday, don't be surprised, don't be surprised. Walk like us. They even talk like us. Walk like us. But they are not like us.
Jeran.
Damn it, I pulled a Weiss. My bad. Welcome back to Jeranism Monday Night Raw. Thank you for joining us. We are now on hour 2, which means it's time for your calls. So get in line if you have comments or concerns, questions, testimonies, whatever you want. 213-233-3998. Again, 213-233-3998. We love praise. Yes. Ask away anything you want. Try to keep it concise. We don't need a quiz about paint cans and vacuum insides. Just make your point, and David and I will comment on it. Also, I want to mention again, I know I've done it before, and I've got a video that will be coming on my channel soon about it, so keep your eye out for that. But May the 4th, I just want to mention again because I'm going, and I would love to see as many people as possible. We are having a Sacramento Flat Earth meetup. That's going to be at McKinley Park. So if you want to come out there and say hello, it's going to be at 12 noon. It's kind of a bring your own snacks kind of thing. It's not a potluck. You don't have to bring something. Just if you want to eat something, you should bring it. But yeah, May 4th, Sacramento, 12 noon at McKinley Park.
And your Veritas interview is coming up in 2 weeks?
Yeah, when's that? What date is that again? Do I have it on
I don't know. It should be in your calendar.
I don't have it here, but it's in my phone. So yeah, I got an interview with Mel Fabregas again and he's one of the best interviewers, one of the best shows that there is on Veritas Radio. So if you haven't heard him, definitely check out his website. I believe it's just veritasradio.com.
Yep.
So check that out, and yeah, come out and say hi to me on May 4th. Another thing I'm looking for, and I don't know if this is a possibility, it's just something I was thinking about. I used to golf. Dave, did you ever golf?
No.
Yeah, I used to golf. That was 7 years ago, 6 years ago. I haven't golfed in many a moon, but I do miss getting out with some buddies, enjoying the nature, and having a good conversation. So I was thinking, if there is some guys that golf that come out to this Flat Earth meetup, and I'm certainly not saying we're going to golf on that day. We're going to go to the meetup, but I thought it'd be fun to get a foursome together to where once a month we can go out, hit a new course, and it'd be fun to talk Flat Earth for 4 hours with some guys who enjoy golf and enjoy nature and enjoy the sun. I'm looking outside right now and it's beautiful. I'm like, man, I want to be out there. So anyway, if that's
I chose windsurfing and kite surfing over golf, because if you're going to be gone for 4-8 hours.
8 hours. That's a long golf session, but yeah. Well, I got you. The only problem is I'm a puss when it comes to the ocean. So yeah, I do not want to be out there with the sharks. Did you ever see the movie Jaws?
I did.
Okay, yeah. So after I saw that, and also my parents took me to what's that place called? Universal Studios. Took me to Universal Studios and thought it was funny to not tell me that the rides that we were going on, or the little journey you go through, was like a joke. They didn't tell me that. They thought it was funny to, when they, I don't know. You ever been to Universal Studios?
Nope.
Oh man,
never been to Disneyland.
Oh, it's not Disneyland, but it's. See,
I don't even know.
You don't even know.
Close enough.
They have like Jaws. They have a Jaws ride where you actually go out in a boat, and then the Jaws pops out of the water and tries to attack you. But one of the first things that we went on, I remember I'm 7 years old, is you start driving and they're going by this broken down bridge. So to your right, the guy at the announcing thing on your little carty, your little trolley, whatever it's called, says, and if you look off to the right, there's an old abandoned bridge that's been there for many years, and you can see it's falling apart. And as you're looking, pieces of the wood are falling into the water, and it just looks like a big mess. And then all of a sudden, the car turns up the hill and starts heading towards that bridge. And I'm 7 years old, flipping out, like, what are we doing? Why are we going towards that bridge? My parents didn't feel like telling me that what was about to happen was a joke. And they take you across the bridge, and the bridge falls apart, and it starts falling in the water, and your car tips sideways. I don't know. It's all part of the fun, though. But
wow, that sounds horrifying.
It is horrifying if you don't tell a 7-year-old that it's a joke.
Can kids sue their parents nowadays for something like that?
I think it's legal. Yeah, no, it's legal to indoctrinate your kids into whatever belief you want, I think. If you want them to believe that bridge and the stupid driver is about to go over it. I don't know if that ride's there anymore, by the way. It was there back in 1987, I guess that would be. So check it out if you want to. Anyway, I don't know how we got off topic on that one. May 4th, Sacramento, McKinley Park. See you there, and check out my channel if you want a video reminding you of that. That'll be out this week, I think. Dave, do we have any other topics we need to get to before calls?
No, I'm good. Let's take some calls.
Let's do it. All right. So we got our first caller in the 575 area code. Who's this? Where are you from? Weird. Oh, there they are. What's going on? Caller 575 area code. You're on the air. I can hear you driving, and we're going to meet you up. All right. So whoever that is that's in the 575 area code, you were just live on the air, and all we got to hear was background noise, so I'll come back to you. Let's go to the 905 area code. I can't imagine who this might be. You're on with Jeranism Monday Night Raw.
Hey, Jeran, Dave. Happy Flat Earth Day.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you. I like it.
Yeah. So 2 years ago, Scuba Dracula and myself went to Hamilton for the Scientism rally that they had.
It wasn't really. It was
we
a
didn't
science
catch
rally?
it on- Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We went to the science rally with Flat Earth signs.
Nice.
It was fun. But we didn't catch it on video, but this old lady came up to us and totally dropped the Neil deGrasse.
Field goal?
Science says it's real.
Oh.
I'm sorry?
No, sorry. I ruined your story. Go ahead.
Well, no, just the if you don't believe science is, I totally lost the, the quote. It's the worst quote that Neil's ever said.
Right. Science is real.
Whether you believe in science or not.
Right. Science is true whether you believe it or not. Was the quote.
Oh, yeah. And we couldn't believe it because we didn't have our cameras running because it was like 10 or 20 minutes into standing around, and it was
crazy.
A ridiculous.
Sounds pretty ridiculous.
Absolutely nuts.
No, the whole idea of science is real whether you believe it or not, again, just goes back to what we were talking about with black holes and things like that. It's real easy for someone to say who's making up stories. I could say the same thing, that the Narnia-verse is real whether you believe it or not. So, okay. Yeah.
I enjoyed that video too, I got to say.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. Any final words? Any
comments?
Guys,
I won't keep you long.
All right. I'm surprised.
I got a whole list of things, but not relevant. So
you have a list of things that aren't relevant. Great. Is your channel still existing?
Yes, we are. And okay. Here's something that's relevant. So I got a copyright claim a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
So that was from a Hall & Oates song that was played in an ad. That was by Ben Lai, or the Ben Lai band or brand, the Ben Lai brand remix.
And it was from a song played in one of the ads?
You didn't play it.
What?
So.
Oh, it's just
I got a claim from a song from the ads, but
the ads are not.
So now I'm using of course not. But now I'm putting the Potter's Clay meme videos. It's a flat Earth picture tells 1,000 words.
Mm-hmm.
Just because they're great memes. So that's what I'm putting up during my ads. So I haven't actually asked the Potter's Clay for permission yet. But I just figured out how to do it because I couldn't figure it out last week.
Yeah, you might want to do that.
But I'm sure he's going to be cool.
All right. Well, appreciate the call so much. That was Ginger Sugarbush, who does simulcast this show on his YouTube channel. So if you ever want to watch this on YouTube, head over there. Check it out. He's there live now. You can chat with all the YouTube fun people. Let's go to the next caller. You're in the 304 area code. Who's this? Where are you from? 304 area code.
Good evening, gentlemen. Honor and privilege to speak to you both.
Hey, you as well. What's going on?
Can you hear me okay?
Very great.
Oh, cool. I spoke to you. I called about a month or so ago, and I mentioned for you and some of your colleagues, especially the ones that you have a working relationship with, and Coriolis may play a part of this. That's about the time I tuned in this evening, around 9:20, 9:30, somewhere in that range. And I wondered also about the black hole and about, yes, on the other side of the black hole is blah, 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 blah. It's like, so you've been to the other side and came back and can report what you saw, because it's all speculation. It's all conjecture.
Absolutely.
Frustrating to hear that as they speak as if it's fact, like,
right.
2 apples plus 2 apples is 4 apples. They have, there's no discernment or no differentiation between their stance on facts being facts when they speak about the infinite depth and the density of a black hole and all that. And it's Narnia, like you said. I think that was an excellent analogy. But I digress. A few weeks ago, or about a month or so ago, probably a month to 6 weeks ago, I spoke to you and tossed out to you, as I had been watching this documentary on the tsunami and the subsequent tsunami that occurred that affected the earthquake and tsunami that affected Fukushima,
Right.
as well as the one before that did like Thailand and, you know, devastated like Phuket or whatever. I can't remember the name of that resort town where a lot of Europeans go to, that was, you know, just decimated. And I'd asked you when you could work it into your schedule, clearly you're a very busy man, as well as some of your colleagues, would be to look at specifically at the tsunami and how they show the waves bounce around, kind of like a ripple. You throw a big rock or boulder in the middle of a lake or pond, the waves go to the shorelines, and then they come back out, and they cross each other and go back to the other shoreline, and they keep bouncing around, for lack of a better term, until all that energy is displaced and dismissed and spent. And the more I looked at that as it related to a tsunami on a ball Earth, the less that made sense on how those waves, because remember, they'd have to be traveling uphill and then back downhill and then back uphill again and back downhill again vis-a-vis the curvature of the Earth. And anyway, I was just kind of doing a follow-up call to see if you had a chance to look into that, or if that's still buried in a to-do list, or what your thoughts were, or Dave's, about that tonight.
Definitely buried on my to-do list, but I think that it's interesting, and I would have to look into it to see. I mean, I don't think anything works on a globe anymore, but they always have their ways
Right.
of describing things from a globe standpoint, because that's the whole problem, right? I mean, if you start with that premise and you don't tell people that, you know, that's not figured out, they just say, oh, well, on a globe, this is why this happens and this is why this happens, and people just accept it. So yeah, it takes a little bit of research. I'll definitely look into it, because yeah, if you look on the surface, you're going to find explanations from a globe standpoint, but you're saying they don't make sense. So Dave, you ever looked into tsunamis at all? Have you ever rode one, Dave? That's the question. Dave is gone. Dave, are you there? You're on mute.
Yeah, I'm on mute. Of course I'm on mute. I'm talking. I'm saying amazing things in perfect tonal voice.
He does that consistently.
I actually
He's good at
didn't
that.
sound nasal while I was talking on mute.
I doubt that.
No, it's absolutely a fact. So
tsunamis? I mean, have you ever looked into them at all, or said to work?
I've not questioned the way they're said to work. They seem to work by a slipping of just like they tell us. Now, that doesn't mean ball Earth to me. It means flat Earth. I mean, it doesn't mean one or the other. But do you think that is what's causing them, or you think it's something else?
I don't question the an underwater earthquake, or, you know, a shift in tectonic plates, blah blah blah, whatever. There is some anomaly that creates a shift in the water, thus the falling of part of the Earth or the rising up of part of the Earth, irrespective to which direction the tsunami is created and travels. What I question is, when I was watching this documentary, completely unrelated to flat Earth or globe Earth or anything like that, their computer models that they showed, and we're talking about NOAA and other universities and research laboratories recreating blah blah blah, all this stuff. In this, I don't remember the name of the documentary, but they were showing how all that energy and this wave is traveling toward Phuket or something like that, I think it is, and all these other places they showed it's traveling at 1,000 miles an hour, which ironically should be negated by the spin of the Earth, I guess. But anyway, it's traveling at 1,000 miles per hour. We're talking through the Pacific Rim and through the Indian Ocean and hitting all the affected shorelines. And it's showing that once all that energy plowed into those shorelines, well, then it retreated right back into the ocean and traveled all the way back across the ocean and started affecting the waves that were in, you know, shorelines in Hawaii and even as far west as, you know, California and the Pacific Northwest and all that. And then they showed that energy was still heading back out to sea again. And I'm thinking,
okay.
You know, on a globe Earth, that doesn't, you know, it would make sense in a bathtub. It
Right.
would make sense in a fishbowl. It makes sense in a sea, you know, like
Right.
when you call like Galilee a sea.
Right.
It would make sense in a giant lake or something like that. But an ocean,
I got you now. Okay, because
at 8 inches per mile square, how does it travel up and down and up and down? Why isn't burning off that energy climbing that massive hill that is 1,600 feet high or whatever, as for every mile when you do the math? I started looking at that going, well, that just doesn't make sense.
Gotcha.
And that's what I want you all to look into.
I will look into it because it's a great point. And David always talks about, the lake, and you have a couple land masses in the lake and it's got a shore around it. And you're right. Then a tsunami makes sense where the wave is going towards the land, away from the land, towards the land. But on a globe Earth, you're absolutely right. Why wouldn't it just dissipate out into the rest of the entire ocean? So yeah, I've got to
as it's climbing the big hill.
Right.
The big hill.
Of course. Yep. All right. Well, appreciate the call. We'll definitely look into that. So
right.
Give me some time, and I would love to look at that and do a video on that.
Question.
Yeah.
Did anyone see the day moon today? It was a very large moon this morning up in the sky, blue sky with white clouds. And we had a lot of clouds, but the moon was right in between the clouds. And I noticed that the moon, I had a clear shot to the moon, was the exact same color as the clouds.
Interesting. That same white then.
The same white, same tone, same brightness. It was the same as the clouds. Like if you took the shape of the moon and morphed it up a little bit, you wouldn't be able to tell it wasn't a cloud.
Interesting. I did not see it.
It was just interesting. That's all I got to say about that.
How's weather been over there in the East Coast? I heard it's pretty ugly.
Did you see my last video?
Your sun fade out?
No, the last video called I Do Not Consent. I set my drone up yesterday to film the chemtrails. It was unbelievable. It was just so ridiculous. And
I do not consent. I love that. I love that. All right, let's go to the next caller. You're in the 513. You're on with Jeranism Monday Night Raw. Who's this?
Is this 513, did you say?
You got it. You're on.
Hey, Jeran, how's everybody doing? It's always nice to listen to you guys.
Hey, appreciate it.
I'm a big fan of all you guys, and I'm like you. I just thirst for the science behind this whole thing. I'm a big flat earther and have been for some time now. So I'm always going after the tough stuff, like time zones. Do we have, as a flat earth community, a really good response? Because I put a lot of time in the time zones, comparing like Greenland to Australia, and I can't quite get my handle around that. I mean, if it's like a spokes on a wheel from the North Pole, the spokes closest to the axle will be narrower, the time zones, and the spokes at the end of the wheel, like down in Australia, would be wider. Am I making sense?
Yeah, that seems about right. And are you talking about you don't think that the time zones work on a flat Earth, or?
Well, I'm sure they can work, but I would like to think that we would be able to measure time zones across land closest to the South Pole, and they would be a much wider time zone than, say, the time zones up at the top of Greenland.
Well, Dave, do you have a good answer for that? Because I would say that the Flat Earth Sun and Moon and Zodiac app, when you look at the Flat Earth map and you look at how the sun moves clockwise around that time zones are kind of explained just in that. And then I do see what you're saying, that if you get further out, that the sun moves.
We've talked about it, Jeran.
Yeah,
if you were 10 miles from the North Pole, your time zone is very tight. But it still takes the same amount of time.
Correct.
For the rotation of the sun. Sun still only goes around, from your point of view, that same number of degrees per hour.
Correct.
So.
Correct, but the mileage
is less.
Very tiny up there close to the North Pole, and much longer closer to the South Pole.
Well, I believe that it is, and I also believe that the lines of latitude that GPS gives us, the farther out south you go, the more concocted they are. I think that they curve them and curve out huge swaths of ocean that don't exist inside of these
I wondered about that.
Yeah, I believe that as
well. I wondered about that. I wondered if that was the possibility. For instance, I took, the widest Greenland is like 600 miles, and they have literally about 5 time zones. Australia is like 2,400 miles across, and they only have 3 time zones. And I thought I had them there until I realized that Greenland, on a latitude basis, is much farther north than Australia is to the south. And so that screwed me up. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's why I've looked into the time zones too, and they are very strange, especially when you talk about places like, China has one, right? I think
I don't know.
Yeah, I believe all of China is on one time zone, so that it's just what they decided to do. So that how here in the United States we have East Coast time, Central time, right? But in China, even though they're as wide as the United States or wider, there's just only one time zone. So some people wake up at 6 and it's dark, and some people will go to bed at 5 and it's still day, or whatever. I mean, it's all the same. But one thing I think also, have you seen, and we've talked about this before, Dave, that in the South, which would be indicative of the time zones that a flat Earth would produce, that in the South, when the sun sets, it's gone. As far as up here in the north,
dark in 5 minutes. It's pitch black, from daylight to pitch black in 5 minutes.
Right, which wouldn't make sense on a globe, but does make sense on a more expansive southern flat Earth map, to where the sun it still needs to get around once in 24 hours, but it flies across the top of Australia, and when it sets, it gets dark. It's just gone, which means it's moving faster.
Go ahead, sorry.
No, but you go.
When somebody wants to talk about this, I'm happy to talk about it, but I like to preface it by saying, looking up into the sky is no way to prove the Earth is flat, but we can try to figure it out. Because there's some complicated optics up there. Because when the farther out south you go with that light, with daylight and sunlight, which are different things, then you start factoring in our personal atmospheric dome, and that the sun may very well be in a unique position for each person viewing it. Right. Then the outer side of if there is a dome, which I think there is, the way the sunlight would wrap around that. There's so many factors. There's so many ways to explain it, but we can't prove any of it because we don't have access to it. But we can model it.
Are you suggesting that has something to do with time zones, though? Probably not.
I think that the time zones, if the lines of latitude were straight lines, would definitely be wider. But for example, like when you're taking those 4 time zones that are heading towards Australia, they might squeeze them together and run them across Australia and say, hey, you're in these 4 time zones.
Actually, Australia only has 3.
Okay, well, three time zones. But again, we don't know the real shape of any of these continents. You look at Greenland versus Africa versus Australia. Every map is different. I don't think anybody in the public really knows the size and true shape of all of these land masses.
No, I don't think so either.
I think your one suggestion that there's big swatches of ocean that are hiding some of that time zone, that may be part of the clue there. But I wish that this time zone thing just bugs me.
Yeah, and they did a sun observing party. I don't remember when it was. It's probably 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago at this point. But there was some definite. Everything else seemed to work fine, except for there was an anomaly that seemed to happen out in the Pacific Ocean, where it didn't match what it was supposed to as far as where the sun should have been. Which could have something to do with these huge parts of Southern Ocean that are just not included. And yeah, just to mention, I just looked it up because I wanted to make sure I was right. But yes, it says in spite of it being almost the same size as the continental U.S., China has only one official time zone. So that is really weird. But that's why time zones to me are a little. They're just man-made, and they don't. So I don't know if you could really find a lot with them. Other than we know that if you just look at the Flat Earth Sun and Moon Clock and Zodiac app, that wherever the sun is, it's noon for the people below them. And so if you know that it's doing that, and you know it's making a complete circle, then you know that it moves 15 degrees every hour. And then everybody...
I still can't get over the idea that up north, close to the North Pole, one time zone might be 200 miles. That same time zone close to the South Pole should be like 800 miles. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but then that's what I'm saying, though. But why wouldn't you say the same thing about China and say, well, it's 2,500 miles across, so it should have 4 time zones, but it only has 1? You see what I'm saying? You're comparing something that's... Yeah, it's kind of man-made. And also, if you draw the globe kind of as a Mercator projection, the lines aren't even straight. Greenland is way off to like the right, but then South America, a lot of that is in the same time zone as Greenland, which it's more, it's more expansive. So I think it's an interesting question, something to check out and look into. But you're right, when you get down, if they're not matching as they should, what happened? Oh, we got a break coming up.
We're going to break.
Sorry about that. All right, we'll be right back.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, appreciate it. Okay, guys, call in. You got a half hour left. Jeranism Monday Night Raw. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you in 2 and 2.
You are now tuned into the truth frequency.
Your protection from deception. TFR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
All right, welcome back. You're listening to Jeranism Monday Night Raw. Thank you for joining us. David, are you there?
I am here, not on mute.
I was just checking. So yeah, during the break, Dave, I was looking up a little bit about that because I was like, wait a second, does that mean? Can you imagine talking about throwing people off their, solar time, throwing people off the sky clock in China at sometimes when it's solar noon, meaning that the sun is directly above their heads? It's as late as 3:30 p.m.
Yeah, that's brutal.
That's brutal.
That doesn't really mess up the idea of time zone. That just says, that the government is making a rule saying, hey, you're all going to pay attention to this one specific time zone.
Correct.
Yeah. So,
but if you think that the daylight savings time here throws us off, imagine there.
It does. Looking at my Flat Earth app with the sun in the wrong place throws me off.
Right. Yeah, and I don't know how it would work for somebody in China because they're going to see the sun way past them when it's noon. Just crazy. So, yeah, that's pretty crazy. But, I was thinking, Dave, I do see what he's saying a little bit now. I was kind of thinking about it, that you would expect the land masses in the south to have wider time zones. But I was thinking there is no real land masses in the south.
There's not a lot out there, and
No.
and I actually drew it out once, and my drawing sucked though, so I threw it out. But just imagine those time zones that are heading towards Australia, that you squeeze them together so the three hit Australia, and that leaves a big wide open empty spot out in the ocean somewhere.
Right.
And I think that does exist, that there is a non-charted, non-mapped area of the ocean. I also don't think Australia is the size that the Flat Earth map shows or the real map.
No, I don't think so either.
I think they're both wrong.
No, I think you're exactly right too. I don't think that the land masses are known. You can't get up high enough to know what they look like.
Right.
Period. Whether it's the globe, the Mercator, all those things are incorrect. They're just what do you call them? They're all projections.
Yeah.
Of some type, and we think off the Flat Earth map, but nobody. And again, even though we talk about the Flat Earth map and we talk about the A map and we talk about the app, the Flat Earth Sun and Moon and Zodiac app, neither Dave nor I claim to know what the layout of the land is.
No, but it's pretty close. I mean, that is generally what we're seeing, because if you watch that app and say, hey, look, the sun's over Sydney. Let me call up PK in Sydney. Hey, PK, what time is it? Noon. And it's like it's noon wherever it is. So there's something right about that map.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
There's definitely something right about it.
I would totally agree.
And what I do with people when I'm talking Flat Earth and I'm outside with them, if the sun or the moon is visible, I say, just forget everything you know. Look at it. Look at it. Look at the sun. Look at the moon. You see the sky behind it, and they're like, oh yeah, like. That's because there's sky behind it. It's right there. It's not. Look at the moon. Tomorrow morning, it'll be good for anybody in the United States. Look at the moon. It'll be up in the sky early in the morning to the west. And just look at it. It's right there. It's not much farther than the clouds. And it's crazy.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
It is.
To think that thinking the heliocentric model, it's absolutely insane. But we don't live in the heliocentric model. We live in a completely different place. And if you look and start with the fact that moon and the sun are right there, you have to rethink everything.
I totally agree. I'm trying to remember. Have you ever seen how a sunflower follows the sun?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and you notice it doesn't go upside down. Just make sure you notice that it doesn't follow the sun and then
it goes. Hold on,
down.
it goes 15 degrees per hour and it goes all the way around. Does a full loop. So you're wrong.
No, but it doesn't go upside down.
It doesn't. That's very interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. Let's go to the next caller in the 708 area code. You're on with Jeranism Monday Night Raw. Who's this?
708.
Did I already try and take this one, and that's the person that didn't answer? I don't remember. This call board gets a little confusing. 708, going once.
Sorry,
oh, there he is.
Sorry. I'm here. I'm sorry.
You're here. You almost
I
got
had my thing muted. I didn't.
What's up? What can we do for you?
Really great to be here. I'm excited to hear about this live show that you guys have coming up. I wish you all the luck. I'm not going to be able to make that. But I had one quick question. I don't want to take up too much of your time. Let some of the other callers. I was waiting a while. There's got to be people behind me waiting. Why is there obstruction if the Earth is flat?
Obstruction, what, with the sun?
Or are you talking about for items
No,
in the distance?
With objects on the ground, yeah.
Oh, you want to start, Jeran?
Yeah, jeez, we could do a whole show on this. So have you ever looked into it at all and seen that things disappear from the bottom up, even when they're close by? So let me.
They don't when they're close by.
They don't? There's tons of videos out there. Tons of videos I've done.
Water.
What?
If you're looking over water, then you just keep watching. It'll eventually disappear bottom up.
Right. As will anything. Think of you're looking down a long hallway, right? And somebody goes walking away from you. Well, because their angle gets too small for you to see them anymore, what do you think disappears first? Do you think their head would disappear first or their feet?
Well, they would all disappear uniformly, but if you
How?
have a camera like
how's that possible?
They don't.
How's that possible? There's a reduced angle that is there because the ground meets the sky. And that happens in a hallway, right? If you're looking down a long hallway, eventually the ground meets the ceiling, correct? So things that are
the reduced angle is because they're far away from you.
Correct.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
so
he's saying because mathematically they reduce in size from top to bottom and disappear into a speck, but that's not what happens. If you watch, they'll disappear from the bottom up.
And they have to because that's where the reduced angle would begin.
You have a belief that they disappear equally from head to toe, but you've never checked it out. They don't.
They don't, yeah. Things disappear from the bottom up, and that's because the reduced angle starts at the bottom. So if I go walking away from you, the thing that's going to get the smallest, the quickest, is my feet because they're going to meet the ground, and your eyes are not going to be able to make out what my feet look like anymore before they'll be able to make out what my head looks like because my head isn't getting close to that reduced angle yet.
The angle reduces no matter where you're looking.
No, okay, but where's the angle?
The angle isn't reducing at the ground faster than the angle at the head.
Absolutely it is. Absolutely it is. You're talking about, think of something that's really far away from you that's on the horizon, right? It's something that's, let's say it's a building. Well, what is getting too close to the ground for you to make out anymore? Is it the top of the building or the bottom of the building? What is having its angle reduced because it's getting further away from you? The whole thing.
The whole thing.
Yeah. So Jeran, what's the name of the video that you did on your channel with the guy, the 2.5 hour video?
Yes, excellent video. Yeah, check that out. It's the video 2 videos ago. It's called Angular Resolution, Refraction, and Perspective. If you watch that entire video, which is just about an hour and a half or 2 hours, and there's a guy on there named Travis who does a presentation, I would love for you to watch that and then call back next week.
That would be fantastic.
That would be fantastic.
Then you'll be like, oh, now I get it.
Right, because he's going to describe to you exactly with mathematics. So he'll show you with mathematics. He'll show you with images why it is that things disappear from the bottom up.
And how they disappear.
If you're seriously interested in this subject, though, hold on a second. Hold on. If you're seriously interested in this subject, then would you agree that it's a okay question or it's an okay request for you to watch a 2-hour video and then call back next week and see if you have the same argument? Because I think that that's okay. If you called me and said, Jeran, you don't think that's okay? Well, then we'll go to the next caller. Thanks a lot for calling in. That's ridiculous. If somebody called me and said, Jeran, I think you're wrong about this subject, and I would like you to watch this video and then see if you have a differing opinion, I would watch that video.
He was calling to tell us his belief, and he didn't want anything to challenge it. All right, next caller.
Absolutely. But I'm still open to that caller, 708 area code. I'm going to write this note down just so I can recognize you if you call next week. If you really are interested in finding the truth and you're not just trolling and you're not just fully sold on your belief and have no intention of changing it, if you really do care and say, hey, I'm interested into knowing why these guys believe that items disappear from the bottom up, if it's not Earth curvature, then go to my channel, find a video. It's a video before last. I think it's called Refraction, Angular Resolution, and Perspective. Watch that entire video and then call us back next week and bring the same argument. And my guess is that you won't have that argument anymore because you'll understand what we're trying to convey is that clearly things do disappear bottom.
He won't watch the video.
Probably not. Probably not. But he should.
Do we have another caller?
Yes, we do. Let's go to the 613 area code. You're on with Jeranism RAW. Who's this? 613 area code. Canada. There's another one from the 613. Let's try the other one. 613 area code. You're on with Jeranism Monday Night Raw. Who's this?
Hey, Jeran, can you hear us?
We can hear you great. Who's this?
Hey, Shane. Shane and Andrea from Canada.
What's going on, guys? Yeah, how are you guys? Awesome talking to you. Dave, hey, Dave, have you ever met Shane and Andrea?
I have not.
You have met them. Come on. No, they
Okay,
were.
I have.
Yes, you have. You are our neighbor. You are our neighbor in Denver.
Oh, they were in the room
Yeah,
next
we
to
went
you.
to dinner together. Yeah,
Oh,
that's
okay.
right.
There we go.
Remember him now?
Now I
We
do.
took some of your sauce home to Shane's dad.
Yeah. And he loved it. It was awesome.
Very nice.
Anyways,
Good.
I got a question. David first. David,
I
so
hate
we've been going down this rabbit hole for quite a few years here now. Where are we at the 8 mile mark now? Like, how far does this rabbit hole go?
It goes actually over 8 miles deep. So, but I can't tell you what's below the 8 mile mark.
No one can.
Okay. No one can. Fair enough. And secondly, I was thinking the other day, like I got 3 kids. And first, I just want to say I'm from Perth, Ontario. There's probably a lot of people listening from our area. I know there's a few flat earthers around here. So I want to encourage them to phone into these shows, especially to Jeran.
Hey, thanks.
So I've been thinking, we're going through. I think we're going through the hurdles. You, Jeran, David, and my wife and I. Talking to our kids, they kind of smirked at us originally, I think. But I think now, if you think about their kids going forward, they've heard it from us, and then our kids now, they've heard us saying it over the years. I think it's going to kind of propagate. I don't know if we're going to get to the bottom of it, in our lifetime, but I think it's going to make it easier for our kids' to be open to this concept. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think Dave might disagree a little bit, but to me, I would say the same thing. I hope it happens in my lifetime. I hope we can get this out there in my lifetime, that it can change the current direction. But I do agree with you that it may just take a generation, because I know my son, and I know, for instance, these 2 girls I talked about that were at my mom's for Easter, and other children that are growing up with people in this YouTube world, that all of a sudden they're going to question things that they're taught in a way that I never did. And I was never even given permission to think differently than I was taught in school. So, a huge waste of my life was spent sitting in a desk thinking that I was being handed truth. And a huge step in me finding the flat earth and finding all the deceptions was simply taking a step back and saying, well, are all the things that we're being taught in school true? And when you start thinking about things and you start, I always bring up Columbus discovering America, taught to children as fact, and then you start to realize all the things about him are wrong, and that he was a murderer, and and then you're like, well, why are they teaching children that this was like a good thing? Here comes Columbus. He, discovered, even though he never stepped foot in America, not even close. And yet we still have a Columbus Day. So, things like that once you start opening your mind and realizing that the things that are taught in school for free, by the way, by a government that requires it, just think about that. There's something that's required of you to send your children to for free. And if you think that the purpose of that is to go and get educated so that your children can be great thinking minds, no. Things like thinking outside the box, which is what you need to do to discover new things, to invent new things, is not encouraged. In fact, it's demonized. You'll be punished if you are somebody who questions too much. You'll go to the principal's office. So clearly, all of public education is programming desired by those in control. And so everything that they teach you is a method of control.
Jeran, are you old enough to remember the Andy Griffith Show?
I do remember it, yeah.
Yeah, so that was a big staple show growing up, and everybody watched it because there was very little on TV back then, but it seemed a very wholesome show, right?
Mm-hmm.
So do you know that every single episode, the underlying message was, it's okay to lie as long as you think you're right?
I did not know that.
Every single episode.
Wow.
Yeah. That was that I got that information if I was listening to Veritas Radio, the last week's show. They had a couple on there that was really exposing some good truth. So another plug for Mel Fabregas, Veritas Radio. You can get the first hour for free. Just check it out. I think that part's in the first hour, and it's fascinating stuff.
Yeah, so my hope is that, simply by teaching people critical thought and giving them a second opinion. The problem is that if it wasn't, and I'm not trying to toot my horn or anybody else and say that thank goodness that they're doing that. But I do look at it and say, okay, if we simply let them tell us about black holes and there is no alternative voice, and that's all I want to be. I want to be that voice that says, okay, let's take a step back and think about these black holes, compare them to Narnia, call them narholes. My whole hope there is that people think twice when they're told that black holes exist, because really they should just be able to watch my video and say, hey, this guy makes a point that how do we know anything that they're saying is true? It's based on these guys' statements, and then everything that they put into their computers is based on the simulation idea, and then you start with the premise that the Earth's a sphere and that these places that they're looking at are this certain distance, and all those things are assumed from the start. They're all presupposed. And the problem with that is if they haven't been proven, which is what I'm trying to explain to people, none of these things are proven. They didn't go through the scientific method. It's simply a trap, a trick, using words like proof and experiment and things. And then all of a sudden, and I think we had a caller earlier that talked about the math involved. The problem with that is that they taught people 1 + 1 = 2 and 4 × 4 = 16. Okay, great, we have that now. And then they go into these theoretical things and these formulas and say that we know the distance of the sun, we know that this black hole exists, we know its distance, and then people just are tricked into believing, well, if the same math that produces 1 + 1 = 2 produced the idea that this black hole exists, then it must exist because 1 + 1 is absolutely 2. They don't realize that it's just concepts and ideas, and that if things aren't proven first, you can't then invoke mathematics to prove them. It's not the way things work. You can't just say, oh, well, we say this thing is out in the sky and it's a certain distance away. No one's been there. It's not tangible. Nobody's been out there to touch it. Nobody's been out there to measure it. It's all just mathematics and concepts. So, I mean, that's what I think. What do you think?
I agree.
Really good point. Really good.
I kind of have a question kind of based on the same lines of what you guys are talking about.
About or a boot?
Obviously
Is it about or a boot?
About.
Okay, just making sure.
About.
I heard a boot, but anyway.
So obviously Easter weekend, you're spending time with family, and we've been talking to our family about flat Earth. And my brother's wife homeschools their 4 kids. And we've kind of been talking to them about flat Earth for a while, and they're all Christians, so I kind of talk more about biblical perspective of flat Earth. But I was just talking to her about, what we've learned and what we believe and everything. And her one big question was, why would they do that? What would be the point of, the government, everybody lying to us for years and years and years? And I mean, for people that have been involved in flat Earth, studying flat Earth, there's a lot of reasons, several reasons we can come up with. But when you're just having one conversation with someone in a short period of time, what are simple answers that you can give so that it's not too scientific or too many numbers or just things that are kind of above their head? Just one simple thing, as we were talking, she brought up something about, I was thinking of evolution. It's because she was saying when you're talking about, the Earth, the planets and everything, she's so much thought had to go into that. There's so many numbers involved, so many mathematical calculations and this and that for them to be able to get to that point, to be able to be teaching that in school. But it's they did the exact same thing with evolution. So it's right. You know that evolution's not right because you're a Christian, you believe in creation, but now you're thinking that the flat Earth is a crazy thought.
Right. So you're saying they already don't believe in evolution? No. Yeah. Well, then it's
having a hard time with.
But they're having a hard time with flat Earth.
Well, that should be an easy conversation point where you just lay out that fact and say, all the greatest scientific minds say that evolution exists, and we have proof of it, and we have evidence, and we know exactly how long it all took, and we know when the first life appeared, all that stuff, right? And you say, well, there's no difference in this, in saying if you're able to realize why they would lie in one case, then I would hope you'd realize in the other. The other thing that you would mention to them is if you guys came home tonight and your house is burned down, you're going to immediately be upset. You're going to have to start dealing with it. But the question that you aren't going to ask is, why would somebody burn the house down? I guess you might ask.
Not only that, you wouldn't say it's not burnt down because why? There's no motive.
Right.
I can't figure out why.
Right.
I mean, it's obviously and observably flat and stationary. But the short answer is, the biblical answer is they're hiding God. That's not even that biblical. They're just hiding the Creator. The other thing is to control us. That there's nothing else to discover, Truman.
Right. And I was going to say that when you talk about hiding God, and that you have to understand that everything science is built upon is the idea that there is no Creator. So that's everything that they are going to discover, and everything they're going to invent, and everything they're going to make up, and everything they're going to conjure and come up with formulas for can never show that there's a Creator. It can never do that. That's not the point of science. The point of science is to say, no, everything has a naturalistic reason. Everything came into existence from nothing, and will continue on until the big crunch, or until the sun explodes and eats up the earth. So everything that they describe has to be that there's no rhyme or reason. And, Dave talked about it earlier when you just talk about the way bees operate and the way that everything operates is clearly by design. And these guys are not going to allow anybody to be smarter than them, which is just ridiculous. Again, why would you ever trust somebody that tells you that they know what happened 14.5 billion years ago if they don't know what happened 100 years ago? It's just a folly.
Yeah. Well, and I liked what you said about you're talking about why people get so upset when you're talking about flat Earth, and you were talking about patriotism and how you go into every classroom and you see a flag. Well, you also see a globe.
Right.
And when we were over at their house, she homeschooled her kids, and sure enough, there was a globe sitting in
I made a point of that. I'm like, what is that doing there?
In their homeschool room. And it's the exact same thing. So, I mean, I understand that it's kind of a hard concept to grasp because, we have been, indoctrinated since we started school as young kids, 5, 6 years old. So it is a hard thing to grasp, even if it makes sense.
But that gets back to my point where I'm saying, it's going to be easier for these kids growing up to at least be able to choose what they want to believe in, because me as a parent, we're taking the brunt of it, but my children will say, hey, my dad, was confused on this or didn't know what was going on. He was questioning it. So it'll be easier because we always look up to our parents, I think, till to a certain age. And so I think it's going to be easier as generations go on to be able to, be more open and
just look how,
understanding. Yeah.
3-4 years ago, you say flat Earth and you get the laughed at, pointed at, made fun of reaction. Now you say flat Earth and it's a conversation. People are like, I heard about that. Oh, you'll run into a flat earther now. You'll run into people like, hey, I'm looking into it. I've got questions. That's just in 3 years.
Right.
Give it a couple more years. It's exponentially growing.
Right. And they're going to hide how much it's growing. And I think one way we know how much it's growing is just look at the amount of articles. I remember doing, you can do a Google search alert. And I remember when I very first started Flat Earth, and I put a Google search alert for Flat Earth, and it'd be once a week, maybe once a month that I would see anything come across. And now every day there's 6, 7, 8 articles across the internet talking about Flat Earth. Again, it's meant to demonize, and they put it out there as it's really ridiculous and stupid. But the reason they're having to step up their game is because more and more people are asking questions, and what they need to do is they need to reinforce the idea that Flat Earth is ridiculous, that only NBA stars and idiots and believe it, and rappers. And so I think Dave's right. It's just a matter of time until we kind of break free with that. I don't know, you want to call it an event horizon, whatever. We break through that little threshold and start to really see the tides turn. But hey, appreciate the call, guys. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. Good talking to you guys.
No, let Andrea say what she wanted to say. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, one thing I did end off my conversation with my sister-in-law was I said, you know what? I said at the end of the day, the globe model is not proven. It's not proven. I said, look at the scientific facts. They're theories. You can't prove it. And she recognizes that. And I said, you know what? If anything, teach your kids both. Teach your kids.
Right.
If you still want to teach them globe model, teach it as a theory, and also talk about flat Earth. If you're not at the point where you are one way or the other, I said teach both. Like don't hide that other information from them.
Tried
give
it.
them as an option. and at least
Thanks, guys. Appreciate the call. I don't want to get stuck with the call at the end of the thing there like we normally do. So sorry to everybody waiting. We do apologize. We had a busy night with phone calls, and thank Andrea and Shane for calling in. You guys are awesome, and can't wait to see you again. Hopefully you come out to Dallas. Dave will be there in Dallas, right?
I will.
All right. So, guys, do appreciate you listening to the show as always. If you want to support this show, you can go to paypal.me/Jeran, patreon.com/Jeranism, or if you want to support Dave, head over and get the Flat Earth Sun and Moon and Zodiac Clock app. Did I get that name right?
Yeah. Yes, and get a friend to get it, or buy it for a friend. You can gift it on iTunes to a friend.
Great ideas. All right, guys, till next week. It's been fun. Peace.
Censorship and regulation is becoming an ever-growing problem in today's modern media. From the mainstream to YouTube and Google, the information you're looking for is buried by official narratives and propaganda. This is why TFR is 100% uncensored, unregulated, and listener-supported. The shows on TFR are not micromanaged by the station, and our hosts are free to speak their minds however they please. As such, the views and opinions expressed on our station are of those who make them. If you happen to hear anything offensive on TFR, please send us an email to toughtitty@tfrlive.com, and we'll be happy to tell you that we really don't give a damn. We stand for freedom of speech and non-censorship. If you also stand for free speech, you can go to tfrlive.com/signup and sign up for a TFR supporter pass and help us in our mission to keep the airwaves uncensored and unregulated. TFR Live, your uncensored and unregulated protection from deception.
The Russia probe, impeachment or not? I'm Ann Cates. Former White House counsel Don McGahn has been subpoenaed by the House Judiciary Committee. Correspondent Manu Raju.
McGahn was a central player during the first 2 years of the Trump administration, and his name is mentioned throughout Robert Mueller's report. In addition, he's referenced in the report to the president's efforts to apparently trying to dismiss Robert Mueller. He was asked to dismiss Robert Mueller, but McGahn, according to the report, resisted that move and said that he would rather resign than trigger what he regarded as a potential Saturday night massacre.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, meanwhile, is calling on Democrats to focus on fact-finding, not impeachment.
In a Dear Colleague letter, Speaker Pelosi acknowledges the different